Hello, and welcome to another episode. I'm with Mark Phebus. He's the CEO and founder of 2020 Consulting. Well, Mark, we're sure grateful that you were able to make time with us today. And this discussion is going to be a little bit about you, and certainly we want to give our listeners a chance to understand more about what 2020 Consulting is and what you have to offer. So first off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your background, where you're from.
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate the invite, of course. So,
Absolutely.
So I'm from Indiana originally. Lived in Georgia for a little bit, so I do have some southern roots in.
Okay. I think I hear an accent. So
yeah, I hear
that's cool.
But yeah, I graduated from IU in undergrad, IU for optometry school, and then did a residency at a veterans hospital after I graduated, and now I'm situated in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's where my house is. Yeah.
Great. So, you got into optometry, and then you decided to move into your own business. How did 2020 Consulting develop?
Yeah, of course. So I guess it kind of goes, I guess I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial mind, as it were.
Okay.
We had a private practice club at the optometry school, and it was basically trying to bring in people smarter than us that were good, accountants or business owners, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that was kind of how the business wheels kind of got turning. But then when I was actually working in South Carolina, I was starting to see one of my coworkers go through the negotiation process and basically just had a terrible time of it. She was brought to tears, just had a terrible experience, and I was just watching the whole thing. And I'm really good friends with her now, and I was just like, I never want to have that experience. And just knowing all that, I started taking notes. I started doing research. I started picking her brain, asking all my friends, knowing that one day I was going to have to do this for myself. Because there was a move that I was about to make into North Carolina. And that was kind of how it all got started for me, is I was basically just trying to take care of myself, and I ended up doing pretty well there. And then as a favor to a friend, I kind of did the same thing where I gave her a contract review for her shift into a different field within optometry. And she was really successful. And she was actually the one that said, Mark, you could make a living off this. Like, you could actually help people out. Like, I never would have been able to do this by myself. And, kind of when you do it for yourself, you're just looking out for your own interests. But it became fun for me because I like to teach. I like to help people. And it ends up being more motivational in the end than anything, because a lot of people just never take that step to ask the question for fear of failure. So and you'd agree with that. I hear people all the time just say it was fear that held me back from entrepreneurship. It sounds like that's kind of how you felt, that you just wanted to get through that barrier and into your entrepreneurial. Absolutely. Yeah. Our biggest fears are always up here. It's never what actually exists. So as long as you take that step and take that chance, I always tell people it's kind of like dating. You ask that cute girl out, the worst you can say is no. Or cute guy. There's a lot of females. So.
Well, I guess the only other thing, you could look at it, they're not going to necessarily take your bank account and all of your assets. Well, tell us a little bit more about, so you've kind of mentioned that when other optometrists have started their own private practice, they've utilized a company like yours, and that company's helped them with some of the negotiation, maybe some of the relationships that they need to establish. What are some of the other challenges that people experience? And it sounds like you're targeting optometrists specifically, right?
Yeah, right now I am. It's more so, less so for the owning doctor, more so for the actual new grads that are typically employed by other doctors. So it's more
Uh-huh.
like in a consultation for an existing practice per se. There's
Okay.
plenty of those consultants out there, but there's never really been anyone to fill that niche for someone who graduates and doesn't really know what good compensation is, has never heard of a 401k, doesn't know
Yeah.
anything about medical benefits. It's just
Right.
we're on the grind trying to learn about eyeballs. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
fill in that gap. Um,
Okay.
so certainly this does overlap and could one day, if I decide to expand a little bit, basically find the time to any young professional. I mean, there's really not that much difference in our contract versus a lawyer's contract or a PA's contract or a dentist or
Sure.
any of that. So
Okay. So, so let me make sure I completely understand. So you went through school, and this was the first thing that you did, or did you get in and practice optometry for a little while, or do you
yes,
practice now?
yeah, absolutely. So I'm still a full-time practicing OD. This is just something I do on the side for kicks because
Okay.
I enjoy it. So
Okay.
it's just something a little extra that I do to help people out. And actually, part of it is not just the teaching and the passing on the knowledge, but part of what I do is to give back to the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research. So
Oh,
I
really?
do portion. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big basketball fan. Loved Jimmy V back in the day with the NC
Okay.
State Wolfpack, and
Uh-huh.
he's got I'm not sure if you remember this, but the famous ESPY speech from like 93 or something when he had cancer, and he ended up passing away like 2 months later. But it was a really, really famous speech, and they show it every year in Jimmy V Week, and Dick Vitale and all those guys, Jay Billis, and that they're always bringing it up. But yeah, I give back to that, and I've actually got a friend that works for the company now, so
Oh,
it's
that's
been
awesome.
so I get to help, my colleagues. I get to give a little bit back, and then of course I get a little bit myself. So it's kind of
Good.
it's just good all the way around.
Yeah, good for you. I believe, I heard once from I believe it was John Maxwell, uh, that you have a few different seasons in life where initially you learn, then you earn, and then you have that season where you return. But I'm of the belief that, boy, if you you kind of have to mix them all together. I
Yeah,
think if along the way, you're always going to be learning, so you can be growing and increasing your earning capacity, but then you should always, I believe, find something to give back to, something to return back. And I think, would you say it helps give you more motivation and more passion in what you're doing, because you know that every dollar can go into something that's much bigger than what you're doing?
without a doubt, without a doubt. So yeah, I know that there's probably a point at which I might get bored with this if there wasn't that carrot out in front to know that
Yeah.
my hard work is going toward a good cause. So
Cool.
it's just something a little extra. I mean, I told you about the Jimmy V speech. I used to watch that during finals week when I was in college. So it was like my
Okay.
motivation. So this is my little bit, just a way to give back as an appreciation, because Jimmy V, I know he's passed now, but he inspired the heck out of me, and
That's awesome.
get where I am. So this is the least I
Yeah.
can do, is how I look at
Right.
it, and it helps everyone because cancer is such a it affects everyone, affects every family. It doesn't matter who you are or where you go. It's everywhere. So,
Absolutely. And maybe you're speaking from experience when you talk about that. I know I'd like to get back to something cancer related in the future, because I know I had a mother pass away nearly 10 years ago, and I think all the time about, what can I do to help other families, or to help those kind of cancer research institutes. Um, so I admire you for that,
yeah,
very much so, and hopefully people listening in can think more, uh, more about this, I mean, you really do gain so much more for vision, for the people that you serve. I think when you're giving back.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
would you mind talking us through? So in the preliminary stages of understanding kind of how your company can serve an optometrist starting their own practice. I mean, what does it look like in the very beginning when you meet people in terms of explaining how your services work?
Yeah. So the ideal stage for me to come in is if they've already had an interview with an office, whether it's corporate or private or ODMD, whatever it is, and it basically has a job offer and they just haven't yet accepted it. And they want someone to look at it and say, I don't know anything about this contract. It looks okay to me. I'm really interested in the job. I'm just kind of nervous about signing my name on the dotted line and making sure everything looks good. So, so just that initial contract review is the one. So I do that absolutely free for them. And then I take their contract and I say, look, here's X, Y, and Z, how you can improve it, whether that's, salary or benefits or paid time or their non-compete clause or just some things within the contract that I may say, I'm not sure you want to pay his lawyer fees for some odd reason like that. So there's lots of different facets to it. So I typically try to keep it to the the meat of the contract as far as the numbers go, but I'm always looking out for them. No one wants to pay a lawyer fee and then not have anything to show for it. So my services is to give you that contract review and then get you a raise is the premise of it. So it's twofold.
And you're speaking from an optometrist perspective and not an attorney's perspective, where firsthand how it impacts people. And certainly, like you mentioned before, you have that friend that went through that experience. It was awful. And so, wow, this sounds like a really helpful thing. Now, how much, so it's kind of, primarily outside of school, that's kind of your niche, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've like spoken at optometry school, so I kind of try to start the conversation a little bit early so they know about me before they start going on. But yeah, I've had doctors that are 10, 15 years out reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like to renegotiate my existing contract, or I'm thinking about making a move. So it doesn't have to be a young doctor, but that's typically where I get the bulk of my clients, because they don't yet have a job and they have the limited amount of experience with any kind of contract or employment.
Right. So Mark, what do you say if you ever have anybody say, well, why wouldn't I just go to an attorney? Why would I talk to you? I mean, I understand you're an optometrist, but I mean, do you ever get that kind of an argument?
Yeah, absolutely. So I tell them, yeah, you absolutely can. But the difference between my service and them is they're going to ask for money regardless. And my service is free unless I get them a raise. So they're more than welcome to go write a $1,500 check to have a lawyer look over it, but they're going to have the same contract with maybe a little bit different wording. Numbers are going to stay the same. So they're just cutting a check. I'm looking at the contract and then getting them a raise. And I only take a fee if I get them a raise.
Okay, which is more than fair. Now, I'm wondering, again, just kind of thinking about what somebody would, some questions someone would ask you, is things change in the industry, different benefits surface. What do you do to stay up to date with the benefits to make sure you really are getting the best deal for the optometrist?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of is changing for everyone right now with the new election cycle. So that's kind of the $1,000 question. But most of that stuff, as it pertains to retirement and paid leave, they're pretty consistent. I'm definitely staying up on most of that just for my own personal benefit, and then I'm passing it on. So I'm constantly asking questions to my financial advisor, my own people,
Oh, okay.
and kind of
Right.
passing it on. So I'm not necessarily, doing it on a whim or anything, but I'm just naturally a very curious person. So I'm always asking questions, and I
Right.
tend to get a lot of I don't knows when when I start asking my questions. So that's when I dig into it, and then whatever questions they can bring up to me, I know I've already asked someone smarter than myself. So I'm prepared when
Well,
it.
yeah. Yeah. I've talked with a lot of attorneys that have said the same type of a thing where they get a lot of questions that they write down, in the
Yeah,
first consultation. And then from there, it's doing their homework to make sure that they really can do the best they can to be an advocate for them. So
yeah,
I commend you for that. So yeah, you're right about kind of staying tuned to some of the changes and the things that are happening with our country.
sure.
It's to be seen.
And sort of the beauty of what I provide is I get kind of this question every once in a while is like, what makes you qualified, and
Right.
the beauty of it is it's a results business. So it's absolutely free until I prove to you that I am worth it. So
Yeah, I love
literally,
that.
I take all the risk with my time, and then they get a raise. So it's
Yep.
fun to take that pessimistic client and just be like, wow, I never thought I could get this many days
Yeah.
off and get a little bit extra in retirement. And I just love having those conversations, and making people's days is what it ends up being, because they're just ecstatic when everything settles. So
How do you see your company growing in the next 5 years or so?
yeah, that's a good question. So obviously I can expand to other, even if I wanted to keep it within other medical fields, but I could do young professionals in general, would be a massive expansion if I start taking lawyers. And I live in Charlotte,
Right.
so we're the capital of the world. There's tons of Bank of America contracts right down the road from
Yeah.
me. So
Wow.
it
Yeah. So
certainly
resources
could.
are all around you.
Yeah. There's no shortcome of clients. It's shortcome of my time is what it ends up
Right.
being. So I
Right.
still am a practicing doctor. And so that's the limiting factor is how much I balance consulting with practicing optometry.
So if I may ask, how do you network with other optometrists?
Well, there's been a lot of word of mouth, to be honest with you, because I kind of started with my friends, and optometry is kind of a pretty small community, really. There's
Is that
20,000 of us around the country, but we've all done rotations together back in school, and we all do continuing education together. So everyone kind of knows each other, and it's kind of got the ball rolling for me just to help my friends, and then they tell a couple of their friends, and they have a contract change coming up, and they come reaching out, and then it kind of spider webs from there, and has grown. But I do use LinkedIn as well to reach out to optometry students, just like we did.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely be a big one. And I do some. I met some optometry students, and another buddy here in town in Charlotte. They have a website. One of them was one of them's for students, and one of them's for graduates, and I do some writing for them as well. So,
Okay, really?
Poor man's writing, but yeah, I mean, I just kind of nerd out on my topics that I like, and I try to give an article every once in a while just to keep my name out there, and it's kind of fun, actually.
Well, compliment the direction that you're headed. A few last questions.
Yeah.
In terms of books that you've read that have inspired your direction and has helped you kind of keep the vision of what you want to accomplish in the future, any recommendations?
Yeah. So the last book that I just read, I really, really enjoyed. It was Rejection Proof by Jia Zhang, I think is
Oh,
how you say
okay.
it. He's
Okay.
done like a TED Talk maybe a year or two ago, and it's really entertaining. You can find it on YouTube. Um,
Cool.
but it's
Cool.
basically this guy.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. It's excellent read. Pretty not too hard to read. Short book. But
Okay.
basically, the guy goes out on a 100-day journey to learn about failure, and just he's scared of it at the start, and then he learns how to accept it, and then he learns how to get more yeses, and it's a fascinating journey that he goes on just to understand the human psyche of why we're so scared of failure and
Yeah.
rejection from people we may never see again, or just
I know.
praise or whatever it is. There's something in our head, like, don't do it, like this is a bad idea, and he kind of goes on this journey to try to figure out why, and he learns himself how to accept it. So it's a really neat read.
That sounds really instructive. Well, we'll
Yeah.
make sure to put a link to that TED Talk in the video, and certainly a mention of that book. Now we've talked a lot about entrepreneurship, and a lot of people have kind of their definition before they're entrepreneurs, and then when they actually get into it and have had a little bit of experience. What would you say your definition is, and maybe talk on how that's evolved?
Man, I would just say it always looks sexier than it is in reality. It ends up just being hard work is what it is. Yeah. If you're willing to work hard, it's very, very rewarding. If you don't, then I wouldn't go down the road. So it's if you're self-motivated, then it can be wonderful, and you can go as far as you want to go. And that's what I'd just say. Just keep grinding, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep trying to fail, because every failure leads you one step closer to the next success. And that's kind of just the way I've approached it.
Well, that's fantastic advice. And it sounds like your definition of it, I think, is just hard work toward a good cause that influences many people. That's kind of what I've gathered in this discussion. Is that kind of a fair summary of what you've said?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
or would you add anything to that?
Yeah, you got to love what you do, because otherwise you're going to lose interest. So you got to be passionate, for sure.
Right.
Because anyone can be interested in something for a month, but if you're going to do it for 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you just have to be passionate about it and enjoy it. So that's 100% dead on there.
Well, it sounds like the contributions that you provide to that foundation are almost one angle of many angles of your passion, right? Passion isn't necessarily one thing. It seems to be a collection of things that keep you driven and motivated to influence other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get to help colleagues, which is great and rewarding, and then I get to give back, which is equally humbling and rewarding in and of itself. So 100%.
Fantastic.
It's great. Well,
and the last thing I wanted to ask is how do people learn more about 2020 Consulting? Would you mind sharing a website or a way for people to contact you?
Yep. So 2020consultingod.com and 2020consultingod@gmail.com is my email. Then 770-548-6667 is my cell phone, so you can text or call me for anyone interested.
Great. Well, we'll make sure to put that information in the show notes. And again, want to thank you for making time to visit with us. I think this has been a great interview, and I think a lot of people will benefit. And so I'll go ahead and keep you on. I'll have a few things to chat with you after, but we'll go ahead and end the interview. Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Appreciate it, Lance.
All right. For everybody listening, this has been Mark Phebus with 2020 Consulting. And we hope that this has been a great experience for you. And again, we'll have the show notes posted with all the information we've discussed today.